You ever seen a wild animal about to die? Not on TV, not in a documentary, but right in front of your damn face. 'Cause I have. And let me tell you, it's not slow, it's not quiet, and it sure as hell isn't clean. It was mid-April. The snow had melted, but the ground was still soft and slick with rot. I was out near my cabin, a few miles off the main road, cutting dead branches for firewood. Just me, a saw, and the birds. Then I heard it, this sharp, high-pitched grunt, like someone choking on metal. I turned. Maybe 50 feet from me, chaos. A young moose, maybe a yearling, was getting torn apart by 3 wolves. Big bastards, too. They had it flanked. One on the leg, one going for the neck, and the third pacing like it was waiting for dessert. And I don't know what the hell came over me. I grabbed the nearest branch, half-rotted, barely thick as my wrist, and ran straight at them like a lunatic, yelling, screaming, waving that branch like it was Excalibur. The wolves snapped up at me. One stood its ground, but I didn't stop. I kept running, hollering like a maniac, and somehow they scattered. Not far, but far enough. They backed off into the tree line, pissed off and snarling. I stood between them and the moose, my chest heaving, hands shaking. The moose was still alive. Barely. Its front left leg was shredded, and its side looked like someone had taken a machete to it. Blood was pooling under it, steaming in the cold spring air. I don't know why I didn't just let nature do its thing. Maybe I was tired of watching things die. I pulled off my flannel and pressed it against the worst of the wounds. The moose flinched but didn't fight. I talked to it. Stupid shit. Just to keep myself from thinking too much. You're okay. You're all right, big guy. You hang in there. There was no plan. I just knew I couldn't leave him there. Took me half an hour to get him into the sled I use for hauling wood. Don't ask me how, I still don't know. Adrenaline, maybe. Stupidity, probably. I hauled him back to the cabin. Every 10 feet I thought he'd die. Every 20, I thought I'd throw out my spine. But we made it. I rolled him off the sled and onto a tarp near the porch. He groaned, deep and low, like an old engine trying to turn over. I cleaned the wounds with what I had: boiled water, vodka, rags. It wasn't pretty. He kicked once, almost broke my shin. But he let me do it. By nightfall, he was still breathing, still watching me. And I sat there on the step, looking at this bloodied, broken thing I just dragged out of death's mouth, wondering what the hell I'd done. I lit a cigarette. First in 6 months. Just sat there in the dark, wolves howling somewhere off to the east. That night I didn't sleep. Neither did he. He should have died that night. I kept telling myself that, over and over. There was no reason for him to survive. Not with the blood he'd lost. Not with the way his ribs looked under that torn hide. But come morning, he was still there. Chest rising and falling. Eyes open. Watching me. I heated more water, tore up what was left of an old sheet, and kept cleaning him. I used gloves at first. Didn't want to get too close. But by noon I'd stopped caring. My hands were red from iodine and pressure. I talked to him while I worked. You're a stubborn bastard, huh? You and me both. He didn't flinch. Didn't move much at all. Just blinked, slow, deliberate, like he was thinking about it. The leg was a mess. Muscle torn wide open. Tendon exposed. Nothing I could do there but keep it from rotting. I packed it with gauze and prayed it'd be enough. Not that I pray anymore. Back when my boy was in the hospital, I prayed every night. For a month straight. Didn't miss a single damn night. Didn't change a thing. I stopped praying after that. I moved the moose onto a mattress I dragged from the shed. Made a kind of pen with chairs and crates so he wouldn't try to stand too soon. He was heavy, hot, breathing like a furnace. I stepped back, looked at the scene. My living room looked like a battlefield. Blood, rags, half a bottle of vodka spilled on the floor, and in the middle of it, this huge, broken animal who should have been dead. I sat down, stared at him. Why didn't I let you go? He blinked again. Then, slowly, like it hurt, he moved his head and looked out the window. I followed his gaze. Nothing there. Just trees and wind. That night, I heard him try to get up. A grunt, then a thud. I rushed out of bed, ready to stop him, but he was already down again, breathing hard, eyes closed. I sat next to him, rested my hand on his neck. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to feel a heartbeat that wasn't mine. You ever lose someone and start seeing them in everything? Trees, clouds, strangers on the street. That was me. Every noise the moose made reminded me of how my boy used to whimper when the pain got too much. That low, helpless sound. It gutted me, but this wasn't about grief. I didn't rescue the moose because I was looking for healing. I wasn't looking for anything. I just didn't want to watch one more thing die in front of me. By the third day, he lifted his head when I came into the room. Didn't try to run. Didn't thrash. Just watched me. There was no fear in it. That's what got to me. Not trust, just awareness. Like he knew I wasn't gonna hurt him. Animals don't act like that. Not wild ones. But I didn't say that out loud. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't post about it. I just kept doing what I was doing. Keeping him alive. One more day. They showed up on a Wednesday. I remember because I'd just finished changing the gauze and the whole place stank like iodine and wet fur. I heard the crunch of tires on gravel and peeked out the window. Old blue pickup. Rusted to hell. 3 guys in camo jackets and trucker hats. I knew them. Gary, Lou, and Trent. Small town types. Loud. Drank too much. Shot at anything that moved. They rolled up like they owned the place. Gary hopped out first, holding a beer like it was a passport. "Heard you been playing vet out here," he called. I stepped out onto the porch. Didn't say anything. Lou whistled low. "That blood trail back there yours?" Gary took a swig, looked past me into the cabin. "Jesus, you got a whole moose in there." Trent stayed quiet, leaning against the truck, just watching. I nodded once. He was getting ripped up by wolves. I chased them off. Gary laughed. "You? What? With your charming personality." Lou smirked. "A wounded moose? That's a mercy kill, man. You can't keep that thing alive." "He's still breathing." "Barely." Gary set down his beer on the porch rail. "Look, man, I get it. You've been out here too long. Maybe feeling lonely. But this ain't some Disney movie. That animal's gonna die slow. Might as well put a round in him, do it clean." I stepped down from the porch. "You're not shooting him." Gary tilted his head. "Why not? You think he's gonna thank you? He's meat. That's it. He's not yours to kill." That hung in the air a bit. Gary looked at Lou. Lou shrugged. Trent still hadn't said a word. Gary reached back into the truck and pulled out his rifle. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I stepped closer. "You take one more step with that gun, and I swear to God." Gary raised an eyebrow. "You threatening me?" "I'm telling you. You aim that at him, you better be ready to shoot me first." For a second, no one moved. Then Trent finally spoke. "Gary, don't." Just that. 2 words. But it worked. Gary lowered the rifle, muttered something, and shoved it back into the truck. Lou looked me over. "You lost it, man. Whole damn town thinks so. Then go back to town." They piled back into the pickup. Engine turned over with a cough. As they backed out, Trent locked eyes with me. Not angry, not mocking, just uneasy. And for the rest of the day, I couldn't shake that look. Like he knew something I didn't. A week passed. I stopped counting the days after 4. My routine became feeding, cleaning, checking wounds, and sitting beside him on the porch when the sun dipped low. He stopped flinching every time I walked in. Hell, he even started shifting his weight when I came close, like he was bracing for me to help. Then one morning, I opened the door and found him standing. Just standing. Shaky, stiff, but upright. He looked at me like I was late to something. I stepped outside slowly, waiting for him to bolt into the trees. But he didn't move. Just stood there like a damn lawn ornament. "You're supposed to run now," I told him. He blinked. I swear he blinked with attitude. We spent the next hour like that. Me sitting on the porch, him a few feet away, both pretending this was normal. By the second week, he was walking in circles around the yard. Never far. Ate what I left out for him, apples, oats, anything soft. He wouldn't go near the forest line. Stayed within 20 yards of the cabin, like he'd drawn a boundary in his head. I started talking to him more. You know, you're lucky you didn't end up in Gary's freezer. He'd flick an ear. That was his thing, ear flicks for yes, head turns for no. Or maybe I imagined all that. Hard to say when you're living with a half-ton roommate who doesn't pay rent. One night, I set up the old trail cam I had in the shed. Just wanted to make sure he was sleeping and not dragging himself into the woods to die. It was an old model, grainy black and white footage, motion-triggered. I left it pointed at the front yard. Next morning, I checked the card. 3 videos. 2 just raccoons sniffing around. But the third one, it was him, just standing, facing the front door. For a long time, like half an hour, didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the door like he was waiting to be let in. I watched it twice, felt something tighten in my chest. Why would he do that? I went outside, found him lying by the shed. Still alive, still calm, still not leaving. And I'll be honest, I started wondering if I was screwing this whole thing up. Maybe I'd broken his instincts. Maybe the wolves did something to his head. Or maybe he was just too weak to go. But it didn't feel like that. Felt like he stayed for a reason. Not out of fear. Not out of need. Just stayed. That night I left the front door open. Not all the way. Just enough. Then I sat in the living room. Lights off. Cigarette in hand. Staring into the dark. He never came in. Never even approached. But I saw his shadow through the crack. Just standing there. Still. Silent. And I caught myself whispering, "Good night, buddy." Like he could hear me. Maybe he could.
If you love stories about wildlife rescue, click the subscribe button below. Here's how the button looks on different devices. Every subscription helps spread these stories and raise awareness. The more people know, the more animals get the help they need. And remember, subscribing is completely free. Click subscribe now and join us in protecting wildlife.
The call came just after midnight. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a can of soup, barely warm, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Is this Mr. Hayes?" the voice said. "Yeah. This is Mercy General Hospital. Your mother was admitted an hour ago. Cardiac event. We need someone to authorize further treatment." My mouth went dry. "Is she alive?" "For now. But you should come." I didn't think. Just threw on a jacket, grabbed my keys and bolted. I paused at the porch. He was lying under the tree, eyes half open, chewing slowly. "I'll be back," I said. "Be cool." He blinked. It was a 2-hour drive to the city. Roads empty. Cold wind creeping in through the cracked window. I kept checking the rear view like I was being followed. Got to the hospital. ICU. Machines. Beeping. Mom was pale and wired up, but breathing. A nurse explained the procedures. I nodded through the fog. I stayed till sunrise. She stabilized, but they wanted to keep her overnight. I said I'd be back the next day. Stopped at a gas station for coffee and drove home like a zombie. When I pulled up, something felt off. The front door was shut. I was sure I'd left it cracked. And one of the side windows, the small one by the shed, was busted. Glass all over the ground. Not shattered, just pried open. I felt that cold spike of adrenaline in my spine. Ran to the tree. He was still there. Unharmed. Calm. Lying exactly where I left him. I walked around the cabin. Nothing stolen. Nothing trashed. Just that window and a couple boot prints in the mud. Not mine. I checked the trail cam. 2 clips. First one, midnight. Me driving off. Second one, 2:15 a.m. A figure in a hoodie walking toward the cabin. Couldn't see the face. Flashlight in one hand. Walked right up to the door. Paused. Then went around back. I fast-forwarded. For minutes later, the guy came back around front. Empty-handed. Walked up to the moose. Stood there. Just stood. For maybe a minute. Then turned and left. What the hell? I looked at him, the moose. Still chewing. Still breathing. Not a scratch. I checked inside again. Nothing missing. Nothing moved. I slept with a bat next to the bed that night. Next morning I asked around town. No one knew anything. No one saw a stranger. I didn't mention the moose. Didn't want more Garys showing up. But something about that visit, it didn't feel random. Whoever it was, they knew. Or they were looking for something else. Maybe him. And the way he looked at me when I asked, out loud, "You saw him, didn't you?" He just blinked and kept chewing. I went out for groceries. That's it. Just a damn grocery run. It was 3 days after the hospital trip. Mom was stable and I needed to restock oats, canned beans, more gauze. I was gone maybe 4 hours. Tops. When I pulled back up the drive, the silence hit different. No movement near the tree. No chewing. No shadow waiting by the shed. I walked around the cabin twice before I said it out loud. He's gone. Not a drop of blood. No broken branches. No hoof prints in the soft dirt. Nothing. Just empty yard. Like he'd never been there at all. I checked the trail cam. Dead battery. I ran to the shed, hoping maybe he wandered in to rest. But the door was closed. I opened it and stopped cold. Someone had been inside. There were clothes. Not mine. Folded. Damp. Sitting on an overturned bucket. Pants, shirt, socks. A half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey next to them. And a smell, wet pine and sweat. What the hell? I backed out slowly, heart hammering. Called out once, quietly. Nothing answered. I locked the cabin that night. First time in years. Sat up with a flashlight and the bat again. Every noise outside made me flinch. Wind in the gutters, branches tapping the window. All of it made my chest tighten. Who leaves their clothes in a stranger's shed? Why? Was it the same guy from before? What did he want? And why was the moose gone? I tried to reason it out. Maybe he finally got strong enough to leave. Maybe someone came and took him. Maybe the wolves came back and dragged him off. But that made no sense. No mess, no signs of struggle. Or maybe I just imagined the whole damn thing. Next morning, I went into town again. Coffee shop. Figured I'd clear my head. That's when my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I stepped outside and answered. Yeah. A voice I recognized. Trent. You let him go? That's all he said. No hello. No context. What? I said. What do you mean? Silence. Then he hung up. I stood there in the parking lot, phone in hand, gut twisted up. He knew something, or thought he did. I drove home slow, checking every ditch, every tree line, half expecting to see a shape in the brush. But there was nothing, just road. Back at the cabin, I opened the shed again. The clothes were still there, still damp, but the whiskey bottle was gone. I sat on the porch until dark, waiting. 2 weeks of silence. No prints, no sightings, no camera footage, just empty woods and long days. I tried to go back to normal, whatever the hell that means out here. Chopping wood, fixing the gutters, patching the damn shed door again. But it all felt hollow. I stopped checking the trail cam after day 10. The clothes were still in the shed. I didn't move them, couldn't. Then came that night. Rain tapping on the roof. Fire dying low. I was on the couch half asleep when I heard it. Knock. Not a branch. Not wind. 3 solid knocks at the front door. I froze. Grabbed the bat. Heart in my throat. Another knock. I moved slow. Quiet. Peered through the curtain. And I swear to you he was standing there. The moose. Big. Soaked. And calm. Right at the door. Staring straight at me. I opened it without thinking. Stepped out into the rain. He didn't move. Just looked at me. Water dripping from his ears. Breath steady. I broke. Dropped the bat. Fell to my knees right there on the porch. And for the first time since the hospital, since the boy, I cried. Hard. Ugly. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't stop. He stood there through all of it. Like he knew. No pawing. No snorting. Just watching. When I finally looked up, he was still there. Still staring. And something passed between us. Not words, not magic. Just a weight lifting. Like a knot loosening inside me I didn't even know was there. I whispered, "Where the hell did you go?" He blinked. Then stepped forward, slow and quiet, and laid down at the edge of the porch. Right where he'd always been. I sat next to him until the rain stopped. Didn't say much. Didn't need to. That night, I left the door wide open. He didn't come inside, but he didn't leave either. The next morning, I packed a bag. Didn't overthink it. Just some food, water, a flashlight, a pocket knife. Slipped on my boots, grabbed the trail cam, and stepped outside. He was waiting, like he knew. I didn't say much, just gave him a nod. Let's go. We walked. Not fast, just steady. South, through the thicker part of the forest where the trees close in and cell service dies. I hadn't been that deep in years. Every now and then, he'd stop and glance back, like checking if I was still coming. I was 3 hours in. I set the trail cam on a stump facing the ridge. Switched it to record, not motion triggered. Just in case. We kept moving. The light started changing, thinner, quieter. Somewhere around hour 5 he stopped. We were in a small clearing. Nothing remarkable. Just moss, trees, and quiet. He looked at me, really looked. I stepped closer, reached out. My fingers brushed his shoulder. I think this is it, I said. He blinked. And then he turned. Walked deeper into the trees. I didn't follow. I stood there until I couldn't see him anymore. Then I sat. Felt right. I stayed until dark. Then made my way back. The cabin was the same, but something in me wasn't. I didn't tell anyone. I left the trail cam running for a few more days. Then took out the card. The last video showed me and him walking into the trees. And then empty frame. Just wind. A month later, a friend from town stopped by. Said they hadn't seen me around. Found the door unlocked. Place was clean. Firewood stacked. Dishes washed. No sign of me, but there was a note on the table. Just one line. I don't need answers. I just believe it was a chance. That's it. No explanations. No farewells. Just a chance. And for once, that was enough.